We are on the record, Your Honor.
Good morning. Department T is now in session on the Christy Bowe versus Andrew Baptista matter, case number D-17554-713-F. Could counsel please state appearances?
Good morning, Your Honor. John Kelleher, bar number 6012, on behalf of Mr. Baptista, Your Honor, who's present in my office also by video. And in my office, or in our conference room, is also his wife, Emmeline, Your Honor, who's not a witness to the case, but would be allowed to attend pursuant to the rule.
Okay, great. Good morning, Mr. Kelleher. Good morning, Ms. Bowe and Mr. Baptista. Mr. Ackerman, please state your appearance.
Thank you, Your Honor. 1220. I'm present by video, and my client is present separately by video as well. Ms. Bowe.
Good morning. So we have a full day set for counsel. I just want to hear real quick about timing and how long you think it's going to take, and if you guys think you need an extra day. I have a full day set for you, but I'd like to hear from counsel preliminarily before we start with openings about timing.
Well, good morning, Your Honor. Mr. Ackerman and I spoke yesterday, and we've been in communication throughout the litigation with both Mr. Ackerman and Mr. Cercio. We don't believe the case will go beyond a day today, and we only have 3 witnesses.
Okay. Do you think you need the whole day, Mr. Kelleher?
Perhaps not, Your Honor, but perhaps not. We're hoping that we wouldn't necessarily need that, but you never know. But we definitely won't need 2 days.
Okay. Mr. Ackerman?
Yes, and we've also agreed to, if Your Honor is okay with it, to combine cross and direct, and hopefully that can save some time throughout the day as well. I think it's possible that we take all day, but I think we're all hopeful we can get through this but before the end of the day today.
Okay. I will have to break my staff for lunch, and we do have one. Yeah, so lunch will be somewhere between 12 and 12:30 until about 1:30 or 1:45. We have a quick motion at 1:30 in Department T today, but I don't think it'll be very long. So you guys will likely restart around 1:45 would be my guess. Okay.
Perfect.
Well, thank you, counsel, for letting me know. Would you guys like to proceed with opening statements?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, please proceed. Thank you.
Well, Your Honor, if I may, obviously this is our opportunity to preview the evidence that you'll hear this morning, and some of the evidence that you'll hear has actually already been adduced and reduced to judgment previously in this case. Although Mr. Baptista is the defendant in the case, he was technically the moving party. Your Honor, the evidence will show the following. We have a 9-year-old daughter named Emma, Your Honor, who the parties presently share joint physical and joint legal custody of here. What occurred, Your Honor, is originally the parties hail from Missouri. Emma was conceived, born, and raised for a period of time in Missouri. And then there was a divorce proceeding, Your Honor, and my client, who was living in Las Vegas, Nevada at the time, was awarded primary physical custody of Emma, and was also awarded legal custody to make medical decisions. That's going to be very important as we go through some of the testimony here today, Your Honor, to consider that. There were also very specific findings that the defendant was a party who would not cooperate, the plaintiff, she was the defendant in that case, Ms. Baugh's mother, would not cooperate with visitation, that she interfered with visitation, that she accused my client of sexual abuse, which was found to be unsubstantiated, was obviously a horrific thing to have alleged with such a young child as well. Subsequent to my client receiving primary physical custody, within 8 weeks of that order being emanated from Missouri, she relocated to the state of Nevada. The evidence will show that she's a dental hygienist, that she's worked in multiple places, many places, both in Missouri and in Nevada, at multiple times, at multiple different hours and days as a dental hygienist, and obviously can work anywhere. that within 8 weeks of arriving here in Nevada, she domesticated the order from Missouri and then subsequently came to court and convinced the judge to grant joint physical and joint legal custody.
I saw that.
However, Your Honor, the evidence will be that, and you will see our Family Wizard, Talking Parents communications today that show that this defendant, Your Honor, is not cooperative in any way, shape, or form with any kind of visitation, letting my client know about medical issues, cooperating with even the most basic things. What the evidence will further show, Your Honor, is that the child suffers from a condition which I mispronounced, but I'm familiar with. It's called vitiligo, which causes a skin change and color. Now, that by itself wouldn't make a child disabled, but what it does do is it makes the child more likely and more susceptible to COVID-19, which, as the court knows, is a lethal pandemic still raging throughout the country. What that's important, Ron, what we're asking you to consider today is that my client fully 100% believed that there was an agreement to move back to Missouri. You'll see some communication between them, and you'll hear my client's testimony that the plaintiff, Ms. Barr, has stated repeatedly that she would love to move back to the state of Missouri where they're from. My client kept her in the loop that he had received an awesome job, I'm putting it that way, a dream job in a sense, that was going to raise his pay 2.5 times what he was making, and that he currently makes approximately $100,000 a year. You'll hear from his boss today. He's here in my office who has traveled here from Missouri to testify about that job offer, about the hours that are entailed, and about what he's observed between Mr. Baptista and the party's minor child, Emma. Respectfully, Your Honor, believing that he had a deal, the court needs to consider that we're now in the environment of COVID, which took place and took hold of the country, and particularly Nevada, in March of 2020. Why that's very important, Your Honor, is that there was restrictions on travel, airlines coming into Nevada and all the rest. Both parties in this case, and this is important, both parties were in Missouri at the time in March and April, early April of 2020. They were exchanging Emma pursuant to court orders in Missouri. My client was told, and you're going to hear this testimony, that Ms. Barr was not returning to Nevada, partly because of the travel restrictions that were in place, and partly because what the evidence, I believe, will show is she wasn't working because the dental hygienists and dental offices in Nevada were basically closed, if not closed under court order, governor's orders at that time, and that the environment here was not really safe. In any case, she misrepresented that to my client. He thought that it was safer to have the child in Missouri. He never said that Nevada didn't have jurisdiction over the case if it had to get to court, but in any case, she returns to Nevada and files an emergency motion. My client received 1 day's notice, and he had an attorney at the last minute, and the judge ordered that Emma be returned until there could be a trial or a settlement in this case on the issue of relocation. The reason this is important, Your Honor, is that subsequent to that, they were ordered to go to mediation, which was a complete waste of time. And my client, Your Honor, has struggled. And I'm going to invite the court because, we don't need to necessarily, we can cut some time off of this if the court looks at the filings in the case rather than having me to adduce all the testimony. You can see the motions and the filings with the court is that every second that he was getting to spend with Emma from that point forward had to be done by motion. We could reach no agreements whatsoever as to him having blocks of time out in Missouri, even at his own cost, and even having blocks of time in Nevada with the child. So on several different occasions, we had to file motions with the court, and the court granted those requests for relief. Now, what I'm asking the court to consider is this, as part of one of the biggest issues that will come before the court today is which parent is likely to facilitate this relationship. What the evidence is going to show you is that she had enrolled a child, Your Honor, without speaking to my client back in 2019 into this legacy traditional school. Again, without my client's permission, over his objection, but it was agreed to subsequent to that to leave the child there. But in the summer of 2020, right, she decided, again without consulting my client, to re-enroll in that school, but more importantly, and more dangerously, Your Honor, with a child that has this skin condition that I've just described and what's in all the medical records, she decided unilaterally to enroll the child in the hybrid portion of the school. So that would be a 50-50 attend school and attend in person. Knowing, and for the sole purpose, Your Honor, of preventing my client from having the blocks of time out in Missouri by then claiming, well, the child needs to go to school. Now, while we're going to have to ask you, the court, to conclude and look at the issues, Your Honor, in that she is someone that historically has taken this child to the doctor over and over and over again for minor issues, accusing my client of such things as razor burn on the child, beard burn on the child's mouth and lips, when in reality it was not that at all, and is documented. In that he's caused her to have yeast infections, all kinds of things that she's claimed. And yet, in this instance, when we know that the child has a documented issue, and we know that COVID is fully raging around the world, certainly in the country, she chooses a child that she knows and has documented and previously is so concerned about the health of to go to a hybrid school over dad's objection. So we're going to ask the court to look at that, Your Honor. Look at the non-cooperation that he has received every step of the way. I'd also ask, Your Honor, another incident which occurred just to show and put into sharp relief why the court should have the custody with my client, just as Missouri had done originally a number of years ago, is because there was a doctor's appointment. It also happened to be my client's birthday, right? And what she did is she went ahead and took the child to the dermatologist early that day, right? And then prevented my client from having any time on his birthday. And you're going to hear from him that that's been an ongoing problem. She'll do anything in the world to prevent him from having his birthday with the minor child, with Emma. The parties were never married, Your Honor. It has at times been a high conflict case. We're going to ask you to consider, and the evidence will show, that Nixa is a lovely town in Missouri, that she has a laundry list of family in Missouri, that there is no family here in Nevada for either party, that what she's done to forestall the argument about not having Emma with family members or constantly warehoused in daycare is her mom has flown out from Missouri to be here since the summer so that she can say when she works these hours that, well, a family member is taking care of the child. So we're going to ask you to consider all the advantages of Missouri, Your Honor. We're going to ask you to consider the plaintiff's own statements that she wants to go back to Missouri. And we're going to ask you, Your Honor, respectfully, that you order that change. If Your Honor looks at it, we believe that there's going to be no argument that if you order that and if you grant that in my client's favor, she's just going to move back to Missouri and be a dental hygienist there probably within 8 weeks, just like she did the first time, making the same amount of money or very close to it that she makes here in Nevada. So respectfully, Your Honor, we're going to ask that you look at all those issues. We're going to ask that under the Potter standard, because the parties share joint physical and joint legal custody was never changed, we're going to ask you to make that change today. My client is not seeking child support. If she decides to stay here in Nevada, we will be responsible also for the transportation costs if the court agrees with this relocation. Well, pursuant to Potter, if the court agrees to this relocation, we're also offering her, Your Honor, as we did in our pretrial brief, a very liberal visitation plan, in Nevada if she decides to stay. And I'm going to ask you also to consider at this what she was willing to do for him while the child was here in Nevada when the roles were somewhat reversed as to what she was offering. So with that, Your Honor, I would leave it to you, and we'll be presenting our first witness, Your Honor, Mr. Fortner, after opposing counsel makes his opening statement.
I have one quick question for you, Mr. Kelleher. There was one phrase I didn't understand, and the court took copious notes during your opening argument, so I appreciate the detail. You said that Legacy Traditional School was a high rep school? What does...
I apologize with my mask on because I'm in somewhat close quarters. It is a regular school. It's a charter school, but it had an option for hybrid, meaning that you could be
Hybrid.
half the time going to school and half the time in person.
Okay, so the word was hybrid,
A hybrid
not
school.
high rep. Okay, thank you.
Right. Yes, exactly. Hybrid. Right.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ackerman, please proceed with your opening.
Thank you, Your Honor. We've just heard a lot of allegations from Mr. Baptista's counsel. I would like the court, and I'm glad that the court took notes on those, because what we're not going to see moving forward is any evidence to support any of those allegations, at least not any of the substantive ones. One, the parties were never married. This has always simply been a custody case. Mr. Baptista was never granted primary physical custody. That was the source of litigation previously in this court, and this court found that the Missouri court had granted joint physical custody all the way through. The appellate court found that the Missouri court had granted joint physical custody all the way through. This has never been a situation where Mr. Baptista has had primary physical custody. They will provide no evidence of any of the medical claims that they're making. This claim that the child's mild skin condition somehow makes her susceptible, more susceptible to COVID is simply that, an allegation. There is no medical evidence, and certainly none will be presented to Your Honor today. No doctor statements, no doctor's notes are going to be presented today showing any of those issues. They're going to provide no evidence of these alleged travel restrictions that somehow prevented father from abiding by this court's orders and returning the child to mother. They're going to present no evidence of that. There's going to be no evidence of any violations by mom of any of this court's orders. There's going to be no evidence of any wrongful conduct by mother. Certainly nothing that violated the court's orders. Certainly nothing that then caused an order to show cause against the mother at any time during these proceedings, now or in the past. The issues they bring up mainly are from 2013 and prior. Those issues were litigated in Missouri. They were re-litigated again here when father fought against mom having primary physical custody and lost already in this court. You know what the court will find is that this case is about a father that simply will not stop litigating. No matter what the cost to himself, no matter what the cost to his child, and certainly no matter what the cost to mom. This relocation request is simply the latest in years of constant litigation. The evidence will show that mother and father have shared the child equally since the entry of the Missouri orders in 2016, and certainly since the move by mom to Nevada in 2017, when the child started school here. We note that Judge Brown already determined that the Missouri orders issued a joint physical custody orders, and that this court's already reaffirmed that the parties have joint physical custody, that these allegations from father from prior to 2013 aside, the court has already ruled that both parents are fit and proper to have joint physical custody. Certainly, when looking at things that took place prior to those orders being entered. Now, the evidence is going to show that father appealed that determination from the Nevada court, and this present relocation motion comes just at the heels of the Nevada appellate court denying father's appeal. The evidence will show that the appeal was denied at the end of December 2019. By January 20th, 2020, father was already making plans to go up to Missouri to start work there. By April 2020, father had already wrongfully withheld this child. His intent was to relocate with the child without permission. A pick-up order was required in order to bring this child back to her home state. There is no basis that will be presented for this relocation, especially in light of how quickly father decided to move after the appellate court rejected his appeal. Fathers, everybody just move wherever I feel like living is not an appropriate litigation position. So the main issues for the court to consider today, Your Honor, the modification of custody from joint physical custody to primary, given father's relocation, given father's move to Missouri. Two, whether the child should be uprooted from Nevada to be moved to Missouri. Related orders, of course, for child support and transportation matters. And finally, Your Honor, we'd be asking for attorney's fees in light of father's April 2020 abduction of the child to Missouri, his refusal to participate and abide by this court's orders, by this court's ongoing orders, and frankly for what can only be described as father's vexatious litigation attempts. I want to thank the court for its consideration, and with that, we are ready to proceed, Your Honor.
I had a couple questions for you, counsel.
Yes, Your Honor.
The court was interested in what you indicated about the lack of any orders to show cause. Do you have any reason to believe that there's any orders to show cause pending or any pending AWOT affidavits or anything like that?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, I didn't see any, but you know, there's been a big reshuffle here, so I never know.
Certainly.
So, okay.
No, nothing pending.
Please proceed and please call your first witness. You are on mute, Mr. Kelleher. Please unmute yourself.
Oops, sorry about that, Your Honor.
No problem.
I just want to have a relay. I'm going to call Mr. Fortner, Your Honor. I just have to get him because he's out of my lobby.
Okay, take your time. Thank you.
Thank you. You can take it off. I'm just yes, go ahead.
Can I please have the witness please raise your right hand? You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Please state your name and spell your first and last name for the record. You may place your hand down. Thank you.
Good morning.
Please spell your name for the record.
Sorry, Madam Clerk.
It's Allenfortner.
Mr. Kelleher,
315 East
hang on
Lombard Drive in Republic, Missouri, 65738.
Can you guys?
Counsel, I apologize. The court would like to speak at this time.
Gentlemen, I just wanted, I don't think you could hear me. There's a bit of.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I will keep the mic very close. You guys have two microphones, I think, in close proximity, and it's causing some difficulty with our JAV system. Do you have to be set up that way, or could we create some distance between the two of you so that two microphones aren't interfering with each other?
I could probably turn up my microphone, Your Honor, just asking the questions, we could provide the answer, I think you can still hear it.
Okay, whoever's the louder speaker can turn off their microphone, perhaps. Okay.
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 Flora, do you know Andrew Baptista?
Yes, sir.
And how do you know him?
He's my employee.
That's much better, counsel. Thank you.
And how did you first come to meet Mr. Baptista?
When I first started my business, I came out to Las Vegas to research and learn what I could, and met him upon touring Acres Cannabis. And I toured that 2 or 3 different times, and each time I came out, I would ask more information about things, and we went and had lunch. That's where it got started.
And where are you currently employed?
At Executive Security Specialist, LLC.
And what ownership interest, if any, do you have in ESS, Executive Security?
100%.
100%.
Yes, sir.
And how long have you been employed there?
2 years.
And in relation to Andrew's position at the company, what is Andrew's position at the company?
I'm the president and CEO of the company. Andrew, I brought him in as the senior security specialist.
Okay. And do you recall when Mr. Baptista began employment with ESS?
Yes, sir. It would have been March 1st. It was a 30-day contract, and within a couple of weeks, things were going so good, I went ahead and offered him full-time.
And what kind of work does ESS do?
We are an armed security company. We provide security in the cannabis industry for distribution, cultivation, transportation, and then we also have a transportation license in Oklahoma.
And could you characterize Mr. Baptista as an employee?
Yes, sir. Andrew, from the beginning, it was evident that he was going to be the glue that held our company together in the direction that we wanted to go. And he is very well respected in the industry that we're working in, and it was just a godsend. He's been a blessing for our company.
And let me ask you a little bit about the work hours. What work hours does he have with your business?
Well, being as he's salaried, for the most part, it's Monday through Friday, 8 to 4, 8 to 5. Rarely is it over 40 hours, but sometimes things happen and we go full Saturday or something and get it done.
And in general, how would you describe how your business is doing?
It is actually doing very good. In spite of all of the setbacks with the COVID-19, we've got several contracts, signed 2 more Wednesday before we came out here, and signed another large contract in Oklahoma.
And have you supplied a letter to the court showing Mr. Baptista's job offer and the amount of money he's to receive?
Yes, sir.
I'd like you to look at Exhibit W. You could just go to that book, tab Exhibit W, and 309.
Have any exhibits been stipulated to?
No, Your Honor. No objection to this one.
Okay. I have a question. Would counsel like a few moments to see if we could get some stipulations as to exhibits to streamline today's trial? Because I just have today, and I don't have more time than today. Otherwise, I'd have to, if we need a day 2, you're going to be in May.
I don't think there's any objection to this exhibit, Your Honor.
I understand what you're saying, counsel, but would you like time to speak with Mr. Ackerman to see if you can stipulate to other exhibits?
We do it at the lunch break, Your Honor, if we need to, because most of these I'm not going to use anyway.
Okay.
And I don't think a lot of them have any objections, like tax returns and things like that.
Okay. Okay, fair enough. Please proceed.
Is that the letter that you sent?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Your Honor, I don't think there's any objection to admission of Exhibit W.
I haven't had a chance to open it.
No objection.
Okay.
And what is Mr. Baptista's pay?
His salary is $100,000 a year.
Okay. And in addition to the $100,000 a year, what benefits, if any, does ESS offer?
At this time, we're not doing any benefits. We're waiting until we get a little more revenue producing on basis due to the COVID. We've been set back on that. But I've tried to give him a few bonuses along the way, periodically, you know.
What assistance, there was something that came up in a previous motion that you own the house that Mr. Baptista is renting, is that correct?
No,
All right. Have you ever owned the house that Mr. Baptista is renting and leaving it?
no.
Are you familiar with the neighborhood Mr. Baptista lives in?
Very well. One of our other employees lives in that neighborhood. He's a retired Missouri State Highway Patrol officer for 30 years. A good neighborhood.
Okay, tell me when you say it's a good neighborhood, what do you mean by that?
Well, it's all new homes for the most part. Crime rate's not high, and
Objection, foundation, Your Honor.
Apartments in the area.
Counsel, could you lay a little bit of foundation?
Sure, well, okay. How long have you lived in Missouri?
My entire life.
Okay. And how far is your house located from the house that Mr. Baptista lives in?
Probably 10 to 12 miles.
Okay. Are you familiar with the area that Mr. Nixa lives in?
Yes.
How are you familiar with it?
I grew up in that area. I've got friends and family and that live in that neighborhood. I used to do contract work for AT&T, and Nixa was one of the areas I worked.
Based on your knowledge of the neighborhood, how would you describe the neighborhood?
Very well developed, organized. I mean, it's the kind of neighborhood I'd live in a minute.
Okay. In terms of Mr. Baptista, have you been to the home?
Yes.
What activities, if any, have you participated in with Baptista on a social basis, if any?
Well, periodically, actually quite often, we'll get together and cook out. I have a boat, we go to the lake and hang out about every weekend, most weekends. We've been blessed to have Emma go with us, she loved it. And then we get together during football season and watch Chiefs football games every weekend, about 30 of us.
And are you familiar with Mr. Baptista's spouse?
Yes,
Okay, what's her name?
Emmeline Baptista.
And have you watched Emma, or have you had a chance to observe Emma interact with Mr. Baptista?
Yes.
How often?
Oh gosh, every time she's been in town with the visits over the past year, it's been several times.
When was the most recent time?
Over Christmas.
Okay, and what did you observe over Christmas between Emma and Mr. Baptista?
Just the same joy that they have together. He's amazing with her. When I look at the two of them together and how he treats her, that's how I think every child should be treated. I would have even liked to have been treated like that by my dad.
And if you could describe to me how physical or non-physical it is that Mr. Baptista forms for ESS.
Physically, it's not an over-exerting job, but if we get in a position where altercation might occur in a dispensary or someplace, it could be very physical, but overall it's more mind and organization.
Have you observed Emmeline interacting with them?
Have.
What have you personally observed?
Could you ask that
outside?
question a little louder, Mr. Kelleher? The court didn't hear you.
Sure, I apologize. Have you, what, if anything, have you observed between Emmeline, Mr. Baptista's spouse, and Emma during, let's say, the Christmas holiday?
Well, they get along very good. Emma, she's just a good girl. She's extremely smart, and everyone loves her. Emmeline treats her with respect, but she requires respect, as Andrew does from Emma also, and make her just be a good, upstanding citizen, teach her right from wrong. It's a good thing.
I don't have anything further, Your Honor.
Mr. Ackerman?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Fortner, how long has this current business been in operation?
2 years.
2 years. And in those 2 years, you've already experienced some hardship, is that right, with COVID?
I think everybody's had trouble with COVID. We really haven't had hardship. It's just been a little bit slower rolling out than we anticipated, but we're doing well.
Good. You said you had been able to provide some bonuses to Mr. Baptista. About how much in bonuses over the past 12 months have you provided?
Oh, I don't know, maybe a couple $1,000.
Okay. What other businesses have you personally operated or been chief officer on? What other businesses have you personally operated or been chief officer on in the past?
I had a locating company back years ago. It was called Professional Locating Services, and we did that with Empire District Electric in Joplin, Missouri. Did that for about 5 years, and then they negotiated to take the contract back because they had some union guys going to lose their job.
Okay, and that's a skip trace. When you say locating, you did skip traces and things like that?
It was locating buried utilities. When the contract is going to dig gas, water, sewer, electric, and telephone.
Okay, and how long have you been in the security business?
Well, I've done security prior to starting this company about 4 years prior. We worked with different entertainers. I've worked with Secret Service on some stuff with the president when he came into Springfield.
So you have about 6 years of security experience?
Yes.
When you offered Mr. Baptista the 30-day contract, he basically stopped his work here and moved up there, or went up there to do that 30-day contract. Was it with the understanding that if things went well, there would likely be an offer?
I would say yes. We were going to leave it up in the air and see what happened.
Okay. What qualifications did Mr. Baptista himself have that first drew you to him?
Well, the first thing is the experience that he had through Homeland Security and the experience that he had in the cannabis industry here in Nevada. With Missouri being new to the industry, I wanted to have one leg up on the other security companies by having actual experience in cannabis. And that's what...
So the experience...
I'm sorry.
The experience that Mr. Baptista has makes him a desirable candidate for employment, correct?
Very much so. And people that came out to tour acres of other dispensaries and cultivators around Missouri had also met Andrew. And so they knew him and, respected him.
Is the $100,000 a year a salary commensurate with his experience?
Yes.
One thing that struck me in your testimony, you have a good relationship with Mr. Baptista, with his wife, with Emma. That's good. You discussed having gatherings and barbecues. Is that right?
I'm sorry. You discussed what?
Having gatherings and barbecues with Emma present.
Yes.
And your testimony was these gatherings included 30 people. It's plus.
No, mostly I said 30. There's probably that's a bit much. There's probably about 12 to 15 of us on a regular basis.
During a global pandemic.
Yeah, but it's in a very large building, social distanced.
Okay. No other questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Kelleher? Oh, Mr. Kelleher, can you hear me?
Yes, Your Honor.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. I have a couple questions for you, Mr. Fortner. You were asked a question by Mr. Kelleher, and you responded that Dad treats Emma so well, how every child should be treated. What does he do?
Just the relationship that he has with her. He's very caring. He wants the best for her. She's always on his mind. But at the same time, he wants her to be respectful to not only him and his wife, but to others and even her friends or teachers. Just
I'm going to
try
stop
to be
you for
a
a
good
second,
member in
Mr.
society.
Fortner. I'm going to stop you for a second. What you're kind of sounding to testify about is what's in his head, and the court can't listen to that. It's speculation. What I'm asking specifically is, what does he do? What actions does he take? What things have you witnessed with your two eyes? Go ahead.
Oh, he'll take her to do things, fun things, Silver Dollar City, takes her to, he wanted to go to a haunted house, stuff like that. He's always buying her things that she wants, and just loves her.
Anything else you want to add?
I'm aware of.
Okay.
Your Honor, I do have a follow-up on that.
Yes, please, Mr. Ackerman. Proceed.
Mr. Fortner, have you personally gone with them to these outings to see Mr. Baptista purchase these things for her?
Some, yes.
Okay. I have no other questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Kelleher?
I don't have any questions, Your Honor.
Okay, let's call your next witness.
Your Honor, we call my client, Mr. Baptista.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Fortner.
Thank you.
Yes, you're free to go. Yes.
Please raise your right hand. You do solemnly swear the testimony you are about to give in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God?
I do.
Please state your name and spell your first and last name for the record. You may place your hand down. Thank you.
My name is Andrew Baptista. It's Andrew. Last name is Baptista.
Mr. Baptista, you're the father of Emma.
That's correct.
Okay. And how old is Emma?
Emma just turned 9.
And you're also married, is that right?
I am.
Okay. And what is your wife's name?
Emmeline Baptista.
Okay. And how long have you been married to Emma?
Just over 4 years.
And do you and Emmeline have any children together?
We do not.
Okay. Does Emmeline work outside?
No.
Okay. And how old is Emmeline?
Emmeline's 28.
And she came with you here today and is present, is that right?
That's correct.
Let me ask you a little bit about how long you've been residing in Missouri.
Sure.
How long have you been residing in Missouri?
Since March 1st, 2020, so 10 and a half months.
And I want to bring your attention to evidentiary hearing of 2018 here in Las Vegas, Nevada. In April 25th of 2018, you were ordered to share joint physical and legal custody. Is that right?
Correct.
Just try to speak up a tiny bit, Mr. Kelleher.
I'm sorry, what, Your Honor?
Just try to speak up a tiny bit, Mr. Kelleher. Thank you.
Oh, I apologize. Per the court order, you and mother share joint physical and legal custody. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And prior to going to Missouri, were you exercising all of your court-ordered visitation with Emma?
Yes.
Okay. Pursuant to the court order of 2018, who, if anyone, was given final decision-making over medical decisions for Emma?
Me.
Okay. What issues, if any, have you had with the plaintiff regarding medical issues with Emma?
She decided that she's going to start making unilateral decisions for medical, just taking Emma without notifying me or giving me an hour or two notice. She won't give me any information afterwards regarding follow-up. She has changed notifications, taken me off of notifications, even though I have primary, where I wouldn't get notifications. And then most recently, she has told me she is no longer going to give me any information, that if I want any information, I have to contact the doctors themselves. The problem being, I don't know when they go, so I don't know when to contact the doctors.
And pursuant to the court order of 2018, did the judge make any changes, Judge Brown, to any of those orders between 2018 and today's date?
No.
Okay. I'd like you to look at, you do communication through talking parents, is that correct?
That's correct.
I would like you to look at Exhibit AA, the double A.
One second.
It's double A. So you know.
Oh, I didn't know.
Is there a stipulation as to this exhibit, counsel?
In the front of the back.
It'll be in the back, maybe it's in the second volume.
Mr. Ackerman, is there a stipulation as to exhibit double A?
So I'll have no objection. In fact, this is the same exhibit as our Exhibit 8. If we may, in my questioning, I'd like to use our Exhibit 8, if that can be admitted as well, simply because I have it all marked up in my exhibit book, if there's no objection to that.
Any objection to that, Mr. Kelleher?
I don't have any objection to it, Your Honor.
Both double A and 8 are admitted. Please proceed.
Let me just ask this then with that stipulation. Do you recognize the talking parents history?
Yes.
Okay. And when did you start using talking parents?
I believe it was March 2020.
Do you know if it might have been a little earlier than that?
Or is it March 2019? March 2019, I'm sorry.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about problems getting medical information from the plaintiff, if any. Do you have base stamp 372 there in front of you?
I'm not sure.
You know what, Your Honor, may I just go down and grab it? Give me 1 second. All right, so I'll be on those bottom pages.
Got it.
Back at it. Okay, I'd like you to look at base stamp 372. So in the right-hand corner at the bottom, you'll see the page number. Do you see that?
I do.
Can you read from the entry beginning on May 11th at 7:25 a.m. at the top of this page?
So Christy says the rash has gone away and has flared up again on both legs. She's going to see her pediatrician at 11:30 a.m.
Then I'd like you to go down to May 11th at 8:32. Do you see that?
8:32, I do.
Okay.
Wait.
And what did you ask Mom if you could do? What did it say?
Sorry, give me 1 second. Is it 8:33? Is that the one?
Yeah, May 11th.
Sorry. We have different times. I'm sorry. 8:32, I'm sorry. I said, so will you be FaceTiming me during the appointment?
Okay. So you asked her to FaceTime with the pediatrician, is that right?
That's correct.
Did you get any acknowledgement at all from the defendant?
I did not. In fact, I messaged her again several hours later asking for an answer to the question.
And when did she take Emma to the pediatrician, if at all?
I would think the very next day.
And what day was that visit?
The May 12th, I think.
What day is your birthday?
September 19th.
Did she did she FaceTime you at all during that pediatrician visit?
She did not.
Let's talk about, Was it alleged that Emma had an ankle injury at some point?
That's correct.
Or was there any exchange about an ankle injury in regards to Emma?
Yes.
And when exactly or roughly was that ankle injury? When did that occur?
According to them, it happened at April 15th
Okay.
of 2020.
When you returned Emma to mother, when was that?
April 15th.
Okay. When you returned Emma to mother, did she have any health issues, any problems with her ankle?
Not at all.
Okay. How would you describe Emma's health when you turned her over to mother?
She was absolutely healthy.
Objection, Foundation.
Well, he would have knowledge, Your Honor.
I think if counsel could just rephrase the question, it sounded like it was a if he knew, and then if the answer is yes, then there would be further foundation. So
Did you have a general understanding of Emma's health when you had her in your care up until you turned her over to mother in April 2020?
Yeah, she was.
I'm going to object as to Foundation again. Where is this understanding coming from?
Your Honor, it's pretty patently obvious, but I'll go ahead and ask it. So she was in your care during what period of time in Missouri?
I think I had her at that point for 3 weeks.
Okay, and during those 21 days or 3 weeks, did you see her every single day?
I did.
How many times a day would you say you saw her during a 24-hour period?
Hours every day that she was with me.
And then if she wasn't with you, who was she with?
She would be with Emma.
Okay. Did Emmeline make any complaints to you about Emma's health?
No.
Objection,
What was the
hearsay.
I'm sorry, what?
Hearsay.
granted.
No, it's not. Respectfully, that wouldn't be hearsay.
You can turn your mic off.
Mr. Kelleher, please respond, but the court's inclined to sustain counsel's objection as to hearsay as to the wife's statements.
I mean, we would hearsay, Your Honor, respectfully, because your impression of someone's health or well-being is a present sense impression. It's an exception to the hearsay. In fact, it's not even defined as hearsay.
I agree that
If need be, I can go get the statute, but
I agree that present sense impressions are an exception to hearsay, but I don't see how you get in what wife says.
because that's what it is. The wife is telling you how his daughter did on a particular day. So anything that deals with the health or general feelings of somebody is a present sense impression or present physical impression. I can grab the statute if you want. It's not considered hearsay.
I know the statute. I think it's in. I just read it out loud in a different case.
I left it in the other office, but
with the physical condition. What is your response, Mr. Ackerman?
Your Honor, the statute is actually NRS 51.085. It's a statement describing or explaining an event or condition made while the declarant was perceiving the event or condition. So if what we're saying is that wife...
Counsel, there's another one regarding the physical condition, mental condition, and then there's a third category. It's either...
That would be the declarant's personal. So if the wife is saying, I'm feeling fine, then that's different than saying that other person is feeling fine.
I tend to agree
well,
with
no, Your Honor, respectfully, we're not making statements. He misapprehends the rule. We're not making statements of what Emmeline supposedly, Emma said to Emmeline, right? What we're saying is Emmeline's impression, right, of a non-out-of-court statement. So there is no out-of-court statement. You can come home and ask your spouse, how's our daughter doing, right? And the response would not be hearsay.
It certainly would be. There's no exception that can be pointed to on that. Now, if the question is, did Mr. Baptista witness any ailments, then that's probably the question that we're trying to get to. But I think to say Emma was perfectly healthy, there's a foundational issue there because how is it that he's being able to tell that she's perfectly healthy?
I tend to agree with Mr. Ackerman, Mr. Kelleher. I don't think that, I think you need to lay a little bit more foundation, and I don't think that anything that the wife says can come in, because that would be hearsay. So,
You know what, Your Honor, I'll just ask it a different way, that's fine.
Please try to ask it a different way. I think you can get your point across with just different questions. I can't hear either of you. Could somebody please turn on their microphone?
Your microphone?
Sure. It's on.
Okay.
What complaints, if any, during the period of time that you had Emma in your care, did she make to you about anything regarding her physical well-being?
She never made any complaints about feeling ill, being hurt, or anything along those lines.
During the 18 hours a day that you observed her during 3 weeks, what did you observe that would give you any cause of concern about her ankle or any other part of her body?
Absolutely nothing.
What was your understanding of Emma's physical condition when you turned her over to Mother in April of 2020?
She was fine.
I'd like you to look at base stamp 377. And it's going to be an entry from April 17th, 324.
Okay.
Can you read that for me?
Sure. So I had sent her a message asking, I would like to know why you refused to answer my calls or request to speak to the doctor while you were there. After speaking with the nurse, I knew you were there while I was calling.
And what's her entry? Did she respond on April 17th?
She saw the message 10 seconds after I sent it, but there was no response.
Did you ever receive a response?
I never received a response.
I'd like you to look at base stamp 378.
Okay.
At 358. What's the entry indicate there?
It's from Christy, and it says, we are at Southwest Medical on Rancho. I do not have the orthopedic's name yet.
And what day was that?
That was April 17th.
And what did you say?
I says, we'll get it.
Okay. Did you ever get specific information about the doctor?
Never did.
Were you allowed to participate in the appointment with the doctor at all?
I was not.
How did you ever get any information about Emma's condition?
Eventually, I found the right clinic and spoke to someone and was able to get that information.
I'd like you to look at Exhibit U, if it's there. Maybe the other one. Base stamp 301.
Yes.
What is it?
It is the doctor's notes for the visit.
Move for admission, Your Honor.
Any objection, Mr. Ackerman?
With indulgence, Your Honor.
Could you please state the exhibit one more time?
I apologize, Your Honor. I'm sorry. It's Exhibit U,
Thank you.
base stamp 301.
Thank you.
Objection.
And what date was Emma
It's
evaluated?
admitted.
April 20th, 2020.
Were you able to participate in this appointment?
I was not.
In the next paragraph down, what does the doctor say was the cause of the accident?
She fell and twisted her ankle falling off of a tree 6 days ago.
Okay. So that would have been on April 14th, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Did you receive any information on April 14th that your daughter had fallen out of a tree and injured her?
I did not.
Who was she with when she, or under whose care was she with when she fell out of this tree?
Well, she did fall out of a tree, but she was on her mind.
When did Emma first get taken to the doctor?
For the ankle, April 17th.
Did your daughter ever fall out of a tree when she was with you?
Not that I'm aware of. She's never mentioned it. When I asked her about it, she didn't state that she fell.
Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay.
Sustained as to the daughter's statements.
Let me ask it this way. To your knowledge, did she ever fall out of a tree?
She did not.
Okay. Would you have known if she'd fallen out of a tree in your care?
I would, seeing as how my window faces the back and the only tree is right outside the back of my office.
Let me ask you, when she was first taken to the doctor, was April 17th, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And you didn't have her on April 17th?
I did not.
Okay. Let me ask you, in terms of base stamp 302, what did the doctor do with that April 20th treatment?
I'm sorry, Mr. Kelleher, do you mind repeating the question?
Sure. I'm looking at base stamp 302 of that same exhibit, which is you. What was the doctor, what was the assessment?
It says 8 U female with left lower leg pain and ankle pain. XR show no fracture. She is tender on clinical exam. I would like to treat her with a cam walker. She is able to walk, but with pain, we will continue to monitor and observe.
Okay. And was there a follow-up appointment made?
Yes.
And when was that follow-up appointment made?
Not sure where it's at.
Let me ask you this way. Did you ask to, the record would reflect when it was, but were you allowed a FaceTime for that appointment?
I was not, and apparently it was 4 weeks after this.
Okay. And did you ask to be able to FaceTime for that appointment?
Yes.
Who did you ask?
Christy.
I'd like you to look at base stamp 371. And that's just going back to these talking parents. So I'd like you to look at the top entry, 5/18 at 6:22 p.m. Do you see that?
5/18 at 2 p.m. Yes, sir.
And can you, what did you ask?
I would like to know the date, and time, and location of this appointment, as well as request that I be FaceTimed into this appointment.
And did mom include you in the FaceTime?
She did not.
I'd like you to look at base stamp 371.
And counsel,
Top of the page.
you have made your point. I have a question for you. Is there any court order that indicates that mom or dad must FaceTime at doctor's appointments?
Not specifically, or I'm supposed to be, they're both supposed to be able to participate in the appointments, and that was a court order.
And mom demands it.
She demands it, Your Honor. My client will testify that she's always demanded it. My client has always acquiesced to that.
Okay. Please proceed.
Top of page 371, can you just read that in, the top of the page?
Her response was, Andrew, there was no point and no time to FaceTime. They took an x-ray to check her leg, and the doctor stepped in and said she is fine and to take it easy for a few weeks, and the appointment was over.
Was there a September 19th doctor's appointment?
Yes.
I'd like you to look at base stamp 425. Talk about September again. What's your birthday?
September 19th, 1976.
And September 19th, 1976, where were you on September 19th for this appointment? Where were you?
I was actually headed to the appointment.
Okay. So you were here in town?
I was.
Okay. I'd like you to look at the top of base stamp 425. What are you asking for at the top of base stamp 425?
I sent Chrissy a message on Talking Parents, and it says, since I will not be allowed to have Emma for my birthday, I would like to pick her up after school and take her to the 4:30 appointment. This will allow me to have about an hour and a half with her, just for considering you have been able to have her during your birthday every year with no issue, and I have to fight every year for mine.
Okay. Let me ask you this. The court order was that you were to have control over all of the appointments. Is that correct?
All of the medical, correct?
All the medical. And that had never been changed?
No.
All right. So did you seek to attend the appointment?
Correct.
Okay. And what happened with that appointment?
While we were headed there, she had messaged me at 4:04 saying that the appointment was over and they were leaving.
And let me ask you, in writing, did she tell you when the appointment was?
She did.
Let's look at what she did on base stamp 425. What time did she tell you the appointment was at?
She said 4:15.
Okay, so she told you that the appointment was at 4:15. You were on your way over there.
Objection, Your Honor. It misstates the the exhibit, if he can read what the statement actually was that he's looking at.
Well, you know what, Your Honor, this sounds like that'd be something for cross-examination.
Gentlemen, I don't want to have long speaking objections. So, Mr. Ackerman, what is your objection?
Misrepresents the exhibit.
Mr. Kelleher, your question was you were on your way over there, and what was the rest of it?
I'll ask you a different, well, you know what, I actually asked a question prior to that. In that entry on our family wizard, or our talking parents, what time did she tell you the appointment was?
4:15.
Okay, and is that right in the record? Is that in the record?
Yes.
Okay. And what did you do as a result of the appointment being at 4:15? Or telling you that in writing?
I was headed there at 4 p.m.
At 4 p.m. Okay. And then what happened next?
At 4:04, she messaged me that the appointment was over.
So, before the appointment, strike it. And can you read that actual entry? Go ahead and read the entry as to when she told you the appointment was over.
Let's see. Said her appointment is over. It took 5 minutes. She has healed 95%, and they will see her again in 6 months.
Were you able to go to that appointment then?
I was not.
Generally, how would you describe that as help?
When she's with us, she's always really good. I know she has that vitiligo, so some of it comes across as eczema, and my wife has had eczema, so she's able to help make sure that the rashes and stuff are under control.
And let's talk about a little bit of vitiligo. Explain to the court how that presents, just so we have it for the record. I'll let the court know.
Objection as to foundation.
Foundation's what he observes.
Well, on Emma.
I couldn't quite hear what you said, Mr. Kelleher, so...
What I'm saying is, how does vitiligo, how does it present itself in your daughter?
Okay, that's a fair question. Please proceed.
Go ahead.
Sure. Far as we know, she has these skin issues. I'm not really sure how to explain it as far as medical terms, but I have psoriasis. I'm psoriatic, so it's almost the same thing, where we have skin issues, lesions that form, and it's kind of a 50-50 depending on how you look at it, where they claim whether it is or isn't a autoimmune issue.
And is she able to travel?
Yes.
Okay. What concerns, if any, given vitiligo, is there in regards to the pandemic?
Objection as to foundation.
Well, respectfully, Your Honor, the foundation is just, let me strike it. I'll ask you a different way, make this even easier. Did you consult with doctors?
I did.
Okay. Do you have concerns about vitiligo, COVID-19?
Just for the
I
record,
do.
sustained as to foundation. Go ahead.
Sorry, Your Honor, I just asked a different question.
I know, and I needed to make a ruling on the objection. You guys keep
Okay.
asking questions without the court making a decision on the objection, so I'm trying to get it in where I can. Please proceed.
As a result of your daughter having vitiligo, have you consulted with doctors?
I have.
Okay. How long over the period of her life have you consulted with doctors regarding vitiligo?
Ever since we found out about it, so 1.5 to 2 years.
Okay. And have you consulted with any doctors about vitiligo and COVID-19?
Yes.
Okay. And which doctor do you consult with?
One of them is our neighbor, and I can't think of his name right now. Along with, I'm drawing a blank, another pediatrician here in Las Vegas.
And as a result of that, what precautions, if any, were you taking in terms of your daughter and vitiligo? COVID-19, I'm sorry. COVID-19, vitiligo, and your daughter.
That we need to make sure that we take, proper precautions, travel only when necessary, basically. And it's basically the same advice they gave for me because psoriasis is an autoimmune disease.
In terms of the care of your daughter medically, if you had concerns, are there daycare, was there daycare that your wife was also having for Emma?
My wife?
I'm sorry, the plaintiff.
She apparently had several babysitters that she had used.
Okay. What problems, if any, did you have getting daycare or babysitter information?
It's very difficult. She stated it was not her. Can't remember exact words right now, but she basically told me just their names, wouldn't give me any other information. Said it was not up to her to give up that information for Emma's babysitters, and if I liked any information, I would have to contact the company that she gets the babysitters from.
Okay. I'd like you to go to bait stamp 424. And what does the top of bait stamp 424 say?
Babysitters.
Okay, so it has a title that says babysitter section?
Correct.
Okay, could you just read those?
Sure. So I sent Christy a message, and it says, it has been mentioned multiple times that Emma has several new babysitters. Please provide their names, addresses, phone numbers, and any and all certifications for first aid and CPR. This is exactly the same information you have demanded of me multiple times in the past. Let's see if you provide the information you believe you are entitled to, or will you once again prove that co-parenting is a one-way street?
And what response did she give you?
She states, I use a babysitter service called 5-Star Sitters. They do a thorough background check and make sure all certifications are up to date, as well as a clean driving record. I have 2 babysitters through them, Elizabeth Benitez and Emma Remus. It is not my place to give out their personal information. You are more than welcome to contact 5-Star Sitters and request any information you would like.
And to your knowledge, who's providing daycare now, if anyone?
Christy's mother, Debbie Ball.
Okay. And do you know when she started providing daycare for her daughter, granddaughter?
For this school year, August 20th, 2020 is when she...
And does her mother live in Las Vegas, Nevada, prior to August of 2020?
No.
Okay. Where does her mother live?
Carthage, Missouri.
Carthage, Missouri. How far away is Carthage, Missouri from Nixa?
About an hour's drive.
And in 2020, we'll get to that in a second, but in more detail. But let me ask you, when you are at work, who minds Emma?
Emily does, and then we also have a space at our office for her to, basically her own office if she wants it, for Emma to.
I heard Mr. Baptista's answer, but I didn't hear Mr. Kelleher's question. Could you say the question one more time?
I'm sure. Sorry, Your Honor. I'm just trying to...
Would it be better if I turn the computer so that this is not blocking the microphone? And I'll sit here?
That's fine.
I heard the answer. I just would like you to say the question.
I'm sorry. We're just going to move the computer and make it a little bit. Baptista, when you were at work, who cares for Emma when she's in your...
Either my wife will watch her, or she will actually be at our office where she has her own space.
I'd like you to look at Exhibit L.
Is there a stipulation as to Exhibit L, counsels?
There is not, Your Honor.
I'd like you to look at what are a number of photos. Exhibit L, can you take a look at those photos and let me know when you're done? And let me ask you this. Do you have concerns with Grandma? Let me strike it. Do you have phone calls with Emma, your daughter?
I do.
And do you have concerns with grandmother's interference with those phone calls?
I do.
Okay. And what is the nature of your complaint about Grandma's interference with your phone calls with your daughter?
They didn't make comments during my phone call. They will answer for Emma.
Objection, hearsay, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor, it's, respectfully, you can say what someone, that someone made a statement. We're not saying what the specific statement is.
I
That's
agree with
not the honor
Mr.
for the truth of the
Kelleher
matter.
on that one. Overruled. Please proceed.
So go ahead. What were the concerns?
Besides her being there answering the questions, making comments, in the Missouri court order, she was admonished for trying to get Emma to call the police on me if she ever felt scared. There's a whole section in the Missouri court order that talks about the grandmother's interference causing a hindrance between a loving father-daughter relationship.
And that was reduced to a writing by the Missouri court and was actually domesticated here in Nevada. Is that right?
Correct.
The photographs that are Exhibit 68. Do you know who took those photographs?
I took them.
Okay. Do those photographs fairly and accurately depict the scene as you took the photograph?
Yes.
And when did you take those photographs? Possibly.
Throughout the last 10, 11 months.
Move for admission, Your Honor, of Exhibit Exhibit L.
Any objection, Mr. Ackerman?
No, Your Honor, I have no objection.
So admitted.
Next question would be, as we move kind of from those exhibits, did you have some concerns? Well, let me strike it. As a result of the concerns you had, did you try and discuss that with the plaintiff in this case?
Yes.
I'd like you to look at Bates Stamp 350. Looking at Bates Stamp 350, look at the phone calls on 9/9.
Sure.
And then can you tell me what did you just attempt to discuss with the plaintiff?
So the message says, Christy, you have made false claims to the courts of how I forced Emma to sit next to me during phone calls, not allowing any privacy while you spoke to Emma. Every time Emma is with me, everyone leaves the room and she's in to allow privacy. The fact that you forced Emma to stay downstairs and sit between you and Debbie is ridiculous. This needs to stop as Emma clearly searches for answers from you two, the two people Missouri courts have deemed a threat to a healthy father-daughter relationship. Emma has even expressed how you turned the volume up all the way to listen to the phone calls. Should you want to listen to the phone calls between you and I suggest we open up allowing recordings of all phone calls to eliminate he said, she said. Either allow recordings or give me the privacy to talk to Emma.
Okay. And did she respond to that?
Sure.
To that email?
She saw it 16 minutes after I sent it and didn't respond.
Mr.
I'd like you to go to
Kelleher,
Bates.
both myself and the court clerk are scratching our heads wondering where Bates number 350 is located. Could you please tell us where Bates number 350 is located?
It would be in that same exhibit, Your Honor.
Exhibit L is photos.
No, I get it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All you've mentioned is L, which is photos of grandma in the background.
It would be Exhibit Z. I apologize, Your Honor. That would be Exhibit Z.
Okay. The way that you structured your exhibits, I know you know the Bates number, but start with the letter, please, because I try to find it and then I don't know where to go, and then you start questioning and I'm catching up.
Fair enough, Your Honor. I apologize. I think I just forgot to mention, once we got the talking parents in, that I had another exhibit that just broke down some of those. So Exhibit Z will be basically all these our family wizard calls back and forth, or our talking parent calls.
Okay.
I believe actually, sorry to interrupt. I believe that's actually Exhibit AA, Mr. Kelleher.
But this is Exhibit Z.
Exhibit Z is the audio recording you're proposing, which is a separate exhibit.
I apologize. It is AA, Your Honor, which was admitted, and I probably should have just gone back to that.
Okay. I'd like you to do the following, Mr. Kelleher, and thank you to Mr. Ackerman for assisting Mr. Kelleher. The court and the court clerk were struggling to find Bates number 350 while you were
Okay.
questioning your witness about Bates number 350. So if you could please ask the questions about Bates number 350 that you'd like to make your points on again. Thank you.
If you go to Exhibit AA, Bates stamp 350, can you go to Bates stamp 350?
Okay.
Okay, and you're there at Bates stamp 350?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I'd like you to go to 9-9 of Bates stamp 350. What were you attempting to discuss with Mother?
Allowing Emma to have phone calls without interruption.
And then you had read in that Bates stamp 350. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Did she respond to your concerns in any way?
She did not.
Okay. When we get to in terms of the phone calls with Emma, she turned to Bates stamp 363, which is also in Exhibit AA. And what on Bates stamp 363, what concerns, if any, were you expressing?
Paradigm, my calls with Emma, library books.
Did she respond?
Not to the calls.
And you just explain to the court, because they may have a hard time finding the Bates stamps, because I think they're probably in on a downloaded. What specifically were you complaining about in Bates stamp 363 with the phone call with them?
I sent Christy a message and it states, going forward, I will request that my calls with Emma not occur where you are, as she seems to always look at you when I talk to her to get an answer. My call is with Emma and I don't need your input coming through when Emma and I talk to her. Yeah, this is an ongoing issue.
Okay. Are you asking basically for your privacy with Emma?
Yes,
Okay. Is that something that you've extended to her when she makes her calls?
every time.
Every time? Okay. I'd like you to go to Bates stamp 370. What was the issue on 521, Bates stamp 370, and this is Exhibit AA, so it's all Exhibit AA, Bates stamp 370.
That she hung up on me while I was trying to say bye to Emma.
Did she respond to that?
She did not.
How often does she not respond to your requests?
Say more than half the time.
Could you
What
provide a little
concerns
bit
or
of
any-
foundation on that question, Mr. Kelleher, as far as a time frame?
Since the whole time that you've been using our Talking Parents, how often would you say that she doesn't respond to your requests for information? Talking Parents doing that?
I'd say at least 50 to 60% of the time.
And we've now shown a number of examples of her not responding?
Correct.
Okay. Let me ask it this way. When she asks you something on Talking Parents, do you respond?
I do.
Can you recall any times when she sent you anything on Talking Parents where you failed to respond?
There are several times I won't respond if there's no real question asked. Just like call my mom's phone on Thursday instead of me. Stuff like that.
Okay. Let me ask you in terms of school information, what concerns, if any, have you had in terms of getting school information from the plaintiff?
She will tell me things that the school has said, things that school has sent her, which I later have to contact the school and find out was incorrect. These things being like the 50-50 enrollment report cards and such.
Let's go to Bates stamp 429. Again, this is an Exhibit AA. And what is the top entry on Bates stamp 429?
When Chrissy had an appointment with Emma's teacher.
Okay. Can you just read what it is there, what your concern? Just read it.
Sure. I says, I do not appreciate you having a meeting with Emma's teacher to discuss her school and failing to advise me about it, nor allowing me to attend. You then failed to inform me of this meeting at all. Therefore, your constant violations of the court order no longer will be tolerated. I will see you in court soon. Emma apologized. And by the way, Emma apologized to me today saying, I'm sorry I didn't talk to you last night. My mom kept denying your calls. I don't know why she did that. We were headed home from the strip and I had time to talk to you.
Did she respond to that?
She did not.
Okay. Let me ask you a little bit about that. How did you become aware that there was a parent-teacher meeting?
I think Emma mentioned it in one of my calls.
I'd like you to go, again, Exhibit AA, debate stamp 432. I'd like you to go to entry 813 at 1053.
Okay.
And what was the issue here?
The school had issued a infinite campus password, and when I went to log in, it was already used.
Okay. And what, can you just read exactly what you wrote to her?
Sure. I sent a message that says, the access code that was issued by Legacy Traditional for Infinite Campus says the code has already been used. Could you provide the login information so I can have access as well?
Okay. And how did she respond?
She states, the school says that each guardian gets their own. I requested for them to email you a new access code.
And did they?
They didn't. I actually had to contact them.
I'd like you to go to debate stamp 402. And this is in Exhibit AA, workbook.
Say the Bates number again, Mr. Kelleher.
I apologize. It's Exhibit AA, Bates stamp 402.
Thank you.
402. And when you look at 224, the top entry there, can you just read what that is?
Poem reading.
Okay. And what was the issue?
Emma had a poem reading, and Christy went ahead and set up a time for her to do the poem reading and never notified me.
And did she respond to this text or this email?
She didn't. I sent the first message at 2:24 at 9:59 a.m. No response, and then I sent another one on 2:24 asking if she planned on responding, or still no response, and she never responded.
So there were multiple, as to this issue with the poem reading, there were multiple times out and she didn't respond.
Correct.
Let's look at, how about report cards? Did you have an easy time getting the report cards?
I did not.
Okay, let's go to Bates stamp again. It's Exhibit AA, Bates stamp 366. And I'd like you to go to 612.
Okay.
And can you read those entries from 612?
Sure. So I sent her a message saying, I have not received any information regarding Emma's grades or anything. It was relayed to me that you have had this information for at least 2 weeks and have failed to provide me with any of that information. I would like a copy of Emma's report card and any other information you have been given regarding her school and grades. I also would like to know why you failed to pass this info along in a timely manner.
And how did she respond to that, if at all?
She states, it is on Infinite Campus. You should have been emailed your copy. I picked up my copy. I do not believe it is my job to get school information for you. I would suggest you contact the school into regards to why you were not mailed your copy. I would make sure you have updated your home address with them.
And did the plaintiff have your home address?
She did.
Okay. Did she ever provide you the report card?
She did not.
She did not. I want to ask you a little bit about the Legacy School and the summer of 2020. What information, if at all, did you receive from the plaintiff about enrolling your daughter in the Legacy School on a hybrid program in the summer of 2020, if any?
She never informed me.
Okay. And when was the first time that you realized that your daughter would be attending school on a hybrid program, 50-50 being in class and 50% being in person? When did you become aware of that?
I think just prior to school starting.
And when was that approximately?
August.
Okay, I'd like you to go to base stamp 353. It's exhibit AA again, so same exhibit AA, base stamp 353.
Okay.
And can you just read me what that says on base stamp 353?
Sure, so I sent her a message stating, is there any reason why you chose the 50-50 school schedule without notifying me? You made this decision unilaterally, which is a direct violation of the court order. I spoke to the schools and they told me that the options were made available on June 30th and you submitted the 50-50 that same day, not long after it was posted. The school will be reviewing all contacts regarding education with me going forward, including the decisions which you made violating the court order. I still would like to know your reason for once again making a unilateral decision when it comes to Emma, which goes against the court order.
And what response did you receive?
She said, this was a vote so they could decide. For my household, the schedule I chose, the 50-50 option, you were given the same info and could have selected for your household.
And where again were you residing at this time?
I was in Nixa, Missouri.
Okay, and let's talk a little bit while you were in Nixa, Missouri. What was the level of cooperation between April of 2020 and today's date in terms of you getting time in Missouri with your daughter?
Every request was denied.
Okay, and what did you have to do on multiple occasions to get time with your daughter?
I had to contact my attorney and they had to file to get time.
And how many times did we have to file motions to get you custodial time in Missouri between April and today's date?
At least 3-4 times.
Okay. 3 or 4 times?
I think so, yes.
You never get any time in Nixa, Missouri without the court making an order to give you the time in Nixa, Missouri between April and today?
No.
I'd like you to look at Exhibit S. So it's Exhibit S. S is in Sam. I'd like you to go to base stamp 298. And what is base stamp 298?
It's a correspondence from the legacy school.
Okay. Move for admission of Exhibit 29. I'm sorry, Exhibit S.
Objection as to hearsay, Your Honor.
Or stops.
Hang on 1 second.
Respectfully, Your Honor, if I may address a number of objection. These have been produced for months pursuant to NRCP 16.2. Like it's authentic, so the document itself is authentic. As to the hearsay, Your Honor, it would be a business record as to when she enrolled the child in the school at the legacy school.
Your Honor, the business records exemptions are as it regards regularly kept records in the regular course of business. This is a correspondence in response to a correspondence sent to them. It's not something that takes place in the regular course of business or kept in the regular course of business. It's a statement by a third party being used to address the truth of the matter asserted therein.
I agree with Mr. Ackerman that it's hearsay, and I don't see this email as a exception under the business records exception, Mr. Kelleher.
Let me ask you this. What was your understanding as to how quickly your spouse, I'm sorry, not spouse, the mother of your child enrolled for the hybrid schedule at the school?
Objection, Foundation.
I think the question
Well,
was,
you're right,
what's
you
his
can rely on
understanding?
hearsay for
Hang on,
foundation.
Mr. Kelleher. I think the question was, what's your understanding? So, overruled. Please proceed.
Yeah, go ahead, you can answer.
Immediately after it was posted.
Immediately after it was posted. Okay. And did your daughter attend a hybrid schedule with Legacy School?
She did.
And regarding the, let me strike it, what period of time did you receive Emma out in Missouri after the school year began in November of 2020?
30 days.
Okay, and what period of time was that?
I'm drawing a blank on the actual dates. It was
Well, what month was it?
October.
October, starting in October and ending when?
In November.
Okay. And during that period of time that you had Emma in your care, did she attend the Legacy School?
She did online.
Okay. Was one of the arguments advanced as to why she couldn't come out and visit with you was because of this hybrid school?
Yes.
Let me ask you a little bit about an orthopedic visit, or an ortho visit on base stamp 360. So go to Exhibit AA.
Six zero.
Yes.
Did
Okay.
you say 360, Mr. Kelleher?
Yes, 360, Your Honor. It's all Exhibit AA.
Thank you.
Okay, what was this issue?
For school and ortho visit,
Okay, and what was the request here?
the message states, please advise of the orthodontist appointment that was canceled and will be rescheduled tomorrow by you as mentioned in the phone call last night. Also, I was never notified by you of Emma being enrolled into the Mozart program at Legacy. I had to receive an email from the school. Any other information I should know, such as the details of the programs? Will this require her to stay after school should schools reopen, affecting my time with Emma when I visit her during the school year? Please be advised that it specifically states in the court order that school activities must be made with my input, and you cannot make unilateral decisions on her education. This has happened way too often in this past school year.
Okay, and how did she respond to that, our Family Wizard message?
She responded, haven't made any ortho appointment yet as I have not had time to call them yet. You'll be notified when it is scheduled. Emma, choose the Mozart program, which is part of her school curriculum. You have access to all the same info that I do. Not sure how being involved in that track would affect any visitation, as you should not be visiting during school hours.
Let me ask you this, did she ever give you the orthodontist?
No,
So she never gave you that?
not that I can remember.
I'd like to shift over a little bit into employment. Let's talk about your employment history. Are you currently employed?
I am.
Okay, and who are you currently employed with?
I am employed with ESS, Executive Security Specialist.
Okay, and when did you become employed there?
Officially April or end of March, but my contract started March 1st.
And it was already admitted the letter offering you the employment was, and your boss was already here and entered that information. How often, if at all, do you work beyond the 8 to 5 schedule that was outlined Friday?
Almost never. The last time was to put together furniture.
Now, prior to working with ESS, where were you working prior to that?
I was the security team lead for Bulwarks, and I also contract bodyguarding.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the security lead for Bulwarks. Where was that position?
It was over both Acres Cannabis and Blackjack Cannabis, which is now Cureleaf.
Okay. And let's talk a little bit about that. What period of time did you work for that?
About 2.5 years, 2 years and 3 months, something like that.
Okay. And where was that position located?
It was 2 positions, one just off the strip near Sahara and one on.
Okay. And let's talk a little bit about what you earned during that period of time.
Sure. $18 an hour.
Okay. We're earning $18 an hour. What were the hours like for that position?
It would vary. Sometimes it was 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. Sometimes it was 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Because I was a lead, I basically got stuck in where we were needed to shore up the security.
Were the hours predictable?
Not always.
Were the days of the week that you were predictable?
No.
Did you normally have weekends off?
No.
Let's talk a little bit about the financial disclosure form. Did you file a new financial disclosure form on January 22nd, 2021?
Yes.
And without pulling it out at this point, did you attach your pay stubs to that document?
Yes.
Is everything in that financial disclosure form true and accurate?
Yes.
Okay. And let me ask you this. In terms of your pay stubs, why don't we go to Exhibit P, P as in Paul? Is that P?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what are, looking at Exhibit P, let's just go to base stamp 283 to 296.
That's going to be Exhibit Q.
Oh, so I didn't hear that.
Are you on the 2019 tax return?
2019 tax return.
Yeah,
That's what it is.
so looking at your 2019 year tax return, is that your tax return?
Yes.
Okay, move for admission, Your Honor, is 2019 tax return.
Any objection, Mr. Ackerman?
No objection.
It's admitted.
Can you tell me briefly what you've done for employment for the last 20 years prior to this job at ESS?
I've done security surveillance investigations, and I've contracted with the Homeland Security, Department of Homeland Security, Federal Protective Services.
Okay. And is the job that you're doing now more money than you've ever made?
Yes.
Okay. I'd like you to go ahead and look at Exhibit M. And Exhibit M is what year tax return?
2016.
Move for admission of Exhibit M.
Any
Objection.
It's admitted.
I'd like you to look at Exhibit N. What year tax return is that?
2017.
Move for admission, Your Honor, of that tax return, Exhibit N.
Any objection?
No objection.
It's admitted.
I'd like you to look at Exhibit O. What year tax return is that?
2018.
Move for admission of Exhibit O, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No objection.
It's admitted.
We've looked now at tax returns for 2016, 17, 18, and 19. You haven't yet filed a return for 2020 yet, right?
I have not.
Okay. I don't think you can, actually. Let me ask you this. How much more in terms of percentage is the job that you have now in terms of what it pays as opposed to the job that you left?
It's about 250% more.
And you're currently married?
I am.
Okay. And what year did you and your wife, Emily, get married?
2016.
Let's talk a little bit about the employment that you took in Missouri. Can you tell the court briefly how you found your current job?
My current job found me. I was working as a security supervisor at Acres when several groups were doing tours through. Alan Fortner happened to be in one of those groups and started asking me questions regarding security protocols and procedures. I think my thing just died. Sorry about that.
can hear you.
Okay, go ahead. All right, so in terms of taking this job in Missouri, when did the trial period begin?
March 1st.
Okay. And did you communicate this job offer to plaintiff?
I did. I advised her that I was going to be on a 30-day contract and wanted to work out a visitation schedule that would allow me to see Emma for 30 days prior to leaving. That way she could just have Emma for the 30 days I was out.
Okay. And did she agree to that?
She did not.
Okay. What conversations, if any, did you have in regards to, prior to March of 2020, to moving back to Missouri, both of you, regarding Emma?
Chris had made multiple comments about wanting to move back. I was in the process of taking a federal contract that would have took me to the Middle East. And she said if I was going to do that, she needed to know because she had wanted to move back to Missouri and she would take Emma. And in fact, when I told her that I was looking at moving back in Missouri and asked her if she would consider it, she actually said she would love to be able to do that.
Okay. And how many conversations prior to March of 2020, either through email or verbally, did you have with her where she expressed a desire to move back to Missouri?
Numerous times. I can't tell you a number, but it's kind of a lot.
Okay. And was that something that you had hoped for yourself?
Not necessarily. It just, if I was here, obviously, it changes the dynamics of that agreement.
Okay. Let me ask you a little bit about the communication you have with her via Talking Parents. Did you notify her and ask her about moving back to Missouri?
I did.
I'd like you to look at base stamp 394.
Is that an AA, counsel?
I apologize. You got me again. Yes, Your Honor. It's you got me. It's AA.
Thank you. The court's following along with everything. I just want to make sure I'm on the same page. Thank you.
Okay. Looking at Exhibit AA, base stamp 394, I'd like you to look at 312
Okay.
at 716.
Okay.
And can you read what you wrote and what she wrote? I don't have it right in front of me. Can you just read that?
Sure. So I asked, we have spoken several times in the past where you have mentioned that you'd prefer to move back to Missouri. Emma has said several times that she would be happy to move back to Missouri. The question I have for you is, would you move back if given the opportunity?
And what was her response?
While Emma and I would like to leave Las Vegas, I really can't give you a definitive answer right now. I have to consider my current employment and other financial obligations before I would be able to consider a move.
Okay. Let me ask you this. To your knowledge, does she own a home here in Las Vegas, Nevada?
No.
All right. And are you renting now yourself in Missouri?
I am.
How come you didn't buy a place in Missouri?
It's a new area for us, so we're kind of picking and choosing where we want to eventually plant roots. We're actually looking at buying 100 acres and building.
Okay. In what town?
In the same, it's still in Christian County, so it's within 10 miles or so of where I live now.
Okay. And let me ask you, when the court in Missouri made its order in regards to the custody and visitation of Emma, how old was Emma at that time?
The
very first custody order after trial, whatever else.
4.
Okay. And how soon after the court made its order in Missouri did she move out to Las Vegas, Nevada?
Within 2 months, I want to say.
Okay, so within about 8 weeks or so?
Sure.
And what kind of work was she doing in Missouri at the time? 2000, yes, it was 16, is that right?
Correct. She was a dental hygienist.
Okay. During the period of time that you've known her, has she had any other jobs other than as a dental hygienist?
She did. When I first met her, she was a server at a cafe at a casino. And then I actually hired her as a surveillance operator for the Downstream Casino when I was the manager.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Let's look at Bates, again, Exhibit AA, Bates stamp 385. I'd like you to look at, get there to the bottom of the page, 327 at 9:59. Can you read that for me?
I decided to accept the offer in Missouri. My official move-in date is April 1st, and I will remain in the house my client got for me. My address has already been provided to you.
Okay. And then I'd like to ask you, on the same page, further up on the page, same Exhibit AA, Bates stamp 385, March 29th at 5:45. You see that?
I do.
Okay, can you read that?
Mine, hers, there's two 545s.
Both.
Oh, I'm sorry. So I said, well, Emma also lives with me, so her home is also here next to with me. Wouldn't it be better to allow Emma to remain here where she has been for the past 3 weeks? Remember, where you live isn't where Emma has main residence is. Yeah. And her response is, I will pick Emma up at the same gas station at 3 p.m. Thank you.
Did you believe that you had an agreement for relocation with Emma to Missouri?
I did.
Okay, and why did you believe that?
Because I had messaged Christy and discussed it with her, and she says that if it was what was best for me, I can't remember her exact words, but that I should do it.
Okay, let's look back at Bates stamp 394, Exhibit AA.
And Mr. Kelleher, I know Mr. Ackerman didn't object, but I'd like you to maybe stop with the leading questions and lay a little bit of foundation to allow your client to get to that result. Could you lay a little bit of foundation on that, please?
Well, basically, are you asking me why he believed that he had permission to relocate to Nevada, Your Honor?
Yeah, you basically asked a very leading question that
it's
got
open-ended.
to the result of what it is I know you're trying to get to, but I wanted to sort of hear it naturally from him. And so that's why I'm asking you to stop with the leading questions and allow him to answer on his own and lay a little bit of foundation to let him get to that point. Because the court's very interested in this line of questioning, but I'm more interested in what he says and less interested in what your opinion is of it.
Okay. Well, let me ask it this way then. What led you to believe, or what reasons did you have to believe that the plaintiff was in favor of or agreeing to your relocation with Emma?
Her message saying that if it was something that was beneficial to me, that I should do it.
Okay. And I'd like you to look then at Bates stamp 394, it's Exhibit AA.
Okay,
If you can go there.
I'm here.
Okay. And can you just read down a little further past the 716 point?
Sure. So at 7:57 a.m., I sent her a message saying, my client has asked me to consider going or signing on full-time with his company. I am considering it. So if so, I would relocate to Springfield or the surrounding area. This would need to be accepted before the end of the contract, which ends at the end of March. I am strongly considering it. And Christie's response is, well, regardless, my lease is not up until September, and I will not be making decisions at this time. If you feel this is a good opportunity for you, then you do what you have to do.
Can you keep reading if there's any further discussion?
Sure. There's, so I stated, it is a good opportunity, and should you want to discuss this further, I'd make arrangements that would be mutually beneficial. I'm hoping you'd be willing to work with me, especially where the world is going right now. Being in a big city where people are prone to panic isn't the best place for our daughter.
Was there a response?
There was. She states, what exactly would you be proposing? I will not be living in Springfield. Look up their crime statistics, not a place I want to live. And there's a whole bunch of...
Okay. And how many pages does that go on for?
Another page and a half. Well, this page and the top portion of the next page.
Okay. In addition to our family wizard, in addition to talking parents, what verbal conversations, if any, did you have with her around this time frame, March of 2000?
None. We try to keep all of our conversations on talking parents, so there's none of that he said, she said.
The court
Okay.
has a question, Mr. Kelleher. You started off your questions by asking Dad why he believed he had an agreement. He mentioned it was based on the messages. Then you went to Bates number 394. Where is the agreement?
Well, that's what I'm asking you, Your Honor, right?
On the top of.
So, yeah, so that's what I'm getting to. I'm not,
Okay.
I didn't believe that I was leading him in any way.
Okay.
So, again, the question would be, where did you believe that there was an agreement in terms of text, of messages, if any?
Where she states, if you feel this is a good opportunity for you, then you do what you have to do.
Okay. And what did you take that to mean?
That this is a good opportunity and I should take it.
Okay. And then, based on that, what did you think the agreement would be, I guess?
That we would try to work out an agreement for visitation time. And I had believed that she was keen on moving back to Missouri, so it would give her the opportunity to do that.
Okay. In terms of subsequent to that communication that we just read on Exhibit AA, Bates stamps 394, and again in Exhibit AA, what conversations, if any, or communication did you have in terms of visitation in Missouri in March of 2000? Strike that. I'll just ask it an easier way. Where was the plaintiff in March of 2020, and where were you in March of 2020 in terms of physically?
She was in Las Vegas and I was in Springfield.
Okay. Did that change at all where he was in Missouri for any period of time?
It did.
Okay, and when was that?
I believe end of March, beginning of April.
Okay. And what was your understanding as to why the plaintiff was in Missouri at the end of March, beginning of April 2020?
My understanding was she was furloughed from her position and decided to go to Missouri where it was not as chaotic.
Okay. And what was that based on, the fact that she was furloughed? Like, how did you glean that information?
Objection, calls for speculation.
That's what I'm asking. I'm not asking for speculation. I'm asking how he got that information.
Overruled.
Okay, withdrawn.
It overruled if he knows.
Right, yeah. How did you get that information?
Can't remember at this time. I want to say it was through like news articles or something where the governor had shut down a lot of non-essential businesses. What is it called? Volunteer dental procedures or whatever was one of the ones that was stopped.
Did she inform you when she arrived in Missouri?
I think she informed me the next day.
Okay. And how long was she in Missouri, to your knowledge, in between March and April of 2020?
Just about 3 weeks.
About 3 weeks. And were you exchanging Emma during that 3-week period?
Yes, sir.
And where were you exchanging her?
At a gas station in Springfield.
And do you know where she was staying, your mother plaintiff?
She was staying with her parents in Carthage.
Okay. And this gas station, how far a distance was it from where you were in Nixa as opposed to where she was staying in Carthage?
It was maybe 10 minutes from my house, and it's about an hour from hers.
Let me ask you what led to being in court in April of 2020 here in Las Vegas, Nevada. What was your understanding or communication with the plaintiff in regards to Emma at that time?
Emma had mentioned that they were going back to Las Vegas. I had asked Christy, and Christy stated that she was not. She was going back to her home in Carthage, her parents' home in Carthage.
Okay. And what was your understanding at that time about any return of Emma to Las Vegas, Nevada?
At that point, there wasn't any understanding. I didn't have any information that she had planned on doing it.
Did you have any email communication or phone communication about Emma returning to Las Vegas, Nevada with the plaintiff?
No.
Did you believe that plaintiff was going to return to Las Vegas, Nevada?
I did.
Okay. What was your understanding?
That they already had a flight booked and we're going to leave the day after she got her back on the next pickup.
Okay. And was that different than what you thought was going to happen?
It was different from the information that I had gotten from Christy.
Okay. What information had Christy given you?
That she would be going back, after pickup, she'd be going back to her family's home in Carthage.
Okay. And staying there?
That's what I believed.
When was the first time you got notice of a hearing here in Nevada?
It would have been the day prior to the hearing.
Okay. And the day prior to the hearing, how did you get notice?
It was an email notification.
Okay. And when you got the email notification, what did you do?
I tried to find an attorney.
Okay. And did you find a lawyer?
I found one, sure.
Okay. Who did you find?
I blanking on her name right now. But she was with Cordell and Cordell.
Okay. So you hired Cordell and Cordell?
Correct.
All right. And did you attend the hearing?
I did.
Okay. And did you attend it in person or on video, or how did you attend it?
It was phone call.
Okay, on a phone call. And where were you?
I was in my office at work
Okay. And where was Emma?
with her mom.
So Emma was with, I'm sorry, who?
Her mom. With Christy.
Okay. And what was the order then that you had to do as a result of that hearing?
Return Emma.
Okay. Were you returning Emma, or did she already have Emma?
Oh, I'm sorry. There was several back to back. I'm sorry. I'm blanking. What was the question?
Okay. The question is, you got called into court, right?
Correct.
All right. And when you got called into court, where was Emma?
Oh, she was with her mom. Hold on. She was with me. I'm sorry.
All right. And how soon after the
Gentlemen,
court?
the court has a question. The court has a question. So let's just back up for a second. So there's a motion, there's notice a day before a hearing, there's hiring of a lawyer. What was the month and year?
It was April, Your Honor, of 2020.
Okay, so in April of 2020, which is after this 3-week trip that Mom had in Missouri, the court's not clear as to who the child was with.
Right, and there's obviously a record. I'm just trying to, my client apparently is confused. That's what I was getting to, so.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah, she was with me. We had 2 court dates within like a week of each other, and I'm combining them in my head.
Okay. So the first court date, where was Emma?
She was in Nixa with us.
Okay. All right. And as a result of that first court hearing, what did you have to do, if anything?
I had to return Emma.
Okay. And how much time were you given to return Emma?
It was just over a day, I think.
Okay. And how did you return Emma?
I met up with Christy and returned her.
Okay. Where did you return her? Where did you meet up with her?
Was at the Nixa police station.
Okay. So if I understand the testimony correctly, I just want to make sure. Emma, yourself, and Christy were all in Missouri.
No, Christy had already gone back to Las Vegas.
Okay. So that's going to be my question then. So when there was an exchange in Nixa with the police station, where was Christy coming from, if you know?
She drove from Las Vegas,
Okay.
which is why it was a day so that she could drive, because it's a 22-hour drive.
But did you comply with the court order?
Yes.
All right. And then you had a subsequent hearing, is that right?
Correct.
And did the court order you to attend mediation in this case?
They did.
All right. And that proved unsuccessful?
Eventually we got to it, but for the most part it was rough getting in.
All But what I mean is you didn't reach any agreement. Did you reach any agreements at meeting?
No.
All right. Can you describe yourself if you have any health injuries or health issues?
About a year and a half, maybe a little bit longer, I had a burst gallbladder, and I ended up in emergency surgery. 7 months after that, I got clipped on the 95 and it was in a motorcycle accident. And I also have psoriatic issues.
I'm sorry, what
So,
was the word,
what
Mr. Baptista? So, what was the word?
One
Psoriatic?
more time, I'm sorry.
What was the word that you said? Sciatic?
Psoriatic?
What?
Psoriatic?
Psoriatic. Okay.
And then after my motorcycle crash, I ended up injuring my shoulder, my hip, my back. I tore 2 ligaments in my ankle, and I tore 2 ligaments and separated a tendon in my ankle.
Let me ask you this. How does the job duties that you have now with ESS differ from the job duties that you were doing here in Las Vegas, Nevada in regards to physical portion?
It's less physical. I'm not on my feet all day. I make phone contacts with both the state, local dispensaries, local municipalities to ensure that all policies and procedures regarding securing medical facilities with firearms is adhered to. I make meetings with contractees. A lot of paperwork, not a lot of running around.
Let me ask you in regards to Emma. Tell me what kind of child Emma is.
She's a very inquisitive child. She asks a lot of questions. She's smart. She definitely is artistic and into both drawing and music, and she just recently got into Gremlins. So there's that.
What kind of things do you like to do with Emma?
We do all kinds of. I mean, I used to be an artist in school, and I won several awards when I was in school for my art. So we draw together. I'll help her with different drawings, writing different stories. She loves to write stories, so she wrote a little horror story. We go out exploring Missouri because even though I lived there, I never really did a lot of exploring. So we'll go to different places, do different things. Just a lot of like learning opportunities, and we even went to Hawaii so that she could learn where my part of the family came from, see where I grew up.
And where did you grow up?
I grew up in Nanakuli, Hawaii.
And you speak any language or part of the language?
I speak a couple of, well, I'm Japanese and Puerto Rican, so I speak a little bit of both languages, including English and Hawaiian.
And have you taught Emma to speak any of that?
Yeah.
Okay. And is she able to do that?
Kind of.
Okay. In terms of why you think that better situation for Emma, can you just tell the court why you feel that? What you're relying on?
Sure. It is a much more friendly environment. There's not a lot of people. It's spread out. In the mornings, my neighbors wave to me and tell me good morning. The school ratio, parent-to-teacher ratio is
Objection,
incredible.
Your Honor, this is speculation.
Well, it's not speculation, Your Honor, it's his opinion.
Offer of proof? Or some foundation? How about some foundation as to where he's getting this information?
Well, do you have an idea as to what the population of the town or city of Nixa?
It's like just over 9,000 people.
Okay. And
An objection, again, Your Honor, this is calling for speculation, or at least there's no foundation as to where he's getting this.
well, respectfully, Your Honor, I think he misapprehends, opposing party misapprehends. You can state how many people, to your knowledge, live in the town that you live in. That's not hearsay or lacking foundation. He lives in the town. You can be subject to cross-examination, but you're able to proffer that.
The court is going to sustain the objection, and I have a question for Mr. Baptista. How do you know the population of Nixa, Missouri?
I actually do a lot of research because of what I do to find out the way Missouri issues medical marijuana cards. is based off the population. So I was doing research on that for the last couple of months. And not to mention when you enter town, there's a big sign that says Nixa population, like 9,000 and however many, two.
Thank you.
Sure.
So based on the large sign and the research that you've done, what's your understanding of how big Nixa is?
It's just over 9,000 people and 10 square miles.
Okay. And just in terms of comparison to Las Vegas, Nevada, is Nixa smaller or larger than Las Vegas?
Nixa is a smaller town.
Okay. And why do you prefer a smaller town at this point for Emma?
When we were living there, the statistics that we had gotten was at that time, there was less than a dozen people that had been infected with COVID. There was 0 deaths at that time. The schools were inherited.
Objection, Your Honor. Foundation. I won't do a speaking objection. Foundation, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Did you ever review the CDC reports as to infection rates and deaths?
I did.
Okay. Did you review the CDC rates for infection and deaths on or around March and April of 2020?
Yes.
Did you compare Nixa as opposed to Las Vegas, Nevada?
Absolutely.
Objection. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Have you done that since that time?
I have.
How many times have you done that?
Every couple of weeks.
Okay. And as a result of that, have you drawn certain conclusions that are your opinion as to the infection rates and deaths of the 2 locations?
Yes, I have.
Okay. If you can tell the court what those are.
I'm going to object, Your Honor. This is all based on hearsay that he's going to be speaking to.
Sustained. Can we take
Well, the second one, I know there's not, I'm sorry. Obviously, there's a way to get this in, right, Your Honor? You're allowed to opine as to what the schools are like in your opinion as opposed to here. And again, infection rates as well. You don't have to bring someone from the CDC.
I think that your client is able to testify as to his general understanding or his opinion,
Right, that's all
his
I'm asking.
impressions of things, but some of the questions and how you're phrasing them, like when you're saying and directing him to CDC reports, that's clearly hearsay. So I think it's just how you're asking it. But with that, hang on, Mr. Kelleher. Hang on, Mr. Kelleher. We're going to take a 3-minute bathroom break. None of my staff have had a break. So let me give a 3-minute bathroom break. We'll come back at 11:16, okay?
We all appreciate that. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.